Hello friends and welcome back to Planty Mandy. This is my third video ever and we're going to do a little collection tour and some care tips for Peperomia. So I was thinking about what to show you first for a collection tour, and my Peperomia are doing really well at the moment, so I figured this was a good time to do it. So I'm just gonna start left to right here on my table and let you know what I've got. So this one is Peperomia Piccolo Banda. I believe it's Albovittata is the species name. So this one is multiple plants in the same pot. I found with these ones that's the best way to keep them bushy because they do seem to cycle through leaves at the bottom pretty quickly. So I'm going to say to start with that according to Google there's like 1,500 species of Peperomias and there's a lot of different care for them. So in general they are considered semi-succulent. So that kind of gives you an idea. They are mostly epiphytic in the jungle, but they mostly are like near the jungle floor and they're like growing in rotting wood and things like that. So in my experience, they like terracotta. They like to dry out within a few days of watering them, and then they want to be watered thoroughly again. So quick wet dry cycle is really the key to keeping these guys alive. Peperomia are really prone to rot if they're not getting enough sun or light and if they don't dry out quick enough. Some of them need more light than others, but generally medium to bright indirect, like they all say. There's a couple that I have had in direct sun and they do fine, but for the most part medium to bright indirect. And of course the brighter it is, the less prone to rot because they dry out quicker. This one, I did have a ripple red, which is very similar to this, and it did not do well. I think that it really required higher humidity than I was willing to give it and higher light. So I did propagate that one and sell the babies and I don't have it anymore. So that one is the Piccolo Banda. Next is one that is not doing as well. So this one is the Peperomia Orba Astrid variety. So there's a lot of these, like lemon lime is very similar. There was like 4 or 5 stems in here and they just keep rotting on me. So it was in a plastic pot. I had it in highlight. It doesn't mind the highlight, even some direct sun on it. But when I noticed that they were rotting, I did switch it to terracotta. Pretty much this one is just really difficult for me. It just likes to rot away. So if this rots, I'm just gonna let it go. I'm not gonna try and propagate it anymore. I believe this one is a propagated piece that I did cut off a rotting piece. So it propagates well, but it just wants to rot away. Very pretty though. Next, you saw this one in my outdoor succulent tour. This one is the Peperomia, I forget again, ruby red something. I'll put it on the screen. Really pretty colors. And I'm surprised how much it's stretching up. Since it was outside all summer in direct sun and it's still stretching like that, I'm guessing it just wants to do that. So if it wants to trail over the side eventually, I think that'll look really nice. This one seems to be pretty easy care for me as long as I keep it in high light and water it very infrequently. So you can tell generally with Peperomia how often they want to be watered by how thick the stems and the leaves are. And these are very succulent leaves, so it wants to be watered less frequently than most of them. It's okay if it dries out completely and you leave it for a week or two, it's fine. I think that's really pretty color. So that one I would say is pretty easy care as long as it's in highlight. Okay, another one you saw on my succulent outdoor tour that is not doing so great is the Peperomia Jellie or Ginny. It got totally bleached out by the sun outside, so it does not like highlight. When I bought it, it was like totally bright pink. So maybe I'll insert a picture over there. And I was thinking like highlight would make it more pink, but no, it just faded out. I'm thinking maybe low light is the key. So I did propagate this one. And this one's just been under grow lights in my tent. So it's a little bit more pink. So the other thing to remember with Peperomia is that they can be propagated by leaf cuttings. Even like half a third of this leaf, if you stick it down in soil, it'll grow roots and make a baby plant. However, if you do it with a variegated plant, you will get this plain green. So you can see piece of a leaf, plain green plant. So that's something to remember with these. This one was propagated from stem cuttings. So it was a whole stem with multiple leaves on it and it becomes a variegated plant. But I kind of like the green too. So there's a little green one also. Okay, here's another one. This is a Peperomia Happy Beans or Pincushion. This one I have found tricky. So this is a couple propagated pieces from one that was rotting. Definitely wants terracotta so that it dries out quickly. Definitely likes lots of light. I have it sitting in a south facing window. So it does get direct sun and it's fine with that. So far so good. I would not recommend this one for beginners because it does like to rot out a lot if it stays wet too long. So this one I have tried propagating it from the leaves. You can see some in here. And it doesn't want to do it. It'll sit in the soil for months and months and months and won't grow roots. Definitely won't grow a plant. So that one definitely needs stem cutting to propagate. Okay, let's get into some bigger ones here. This one is, I know it as Peperomia Verticillata. So I think it's Red Log or something like that is the common name. So if you look at the back of it, if I can do that, you'll see the red backs. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. It doesn't need this big of a pot, but it was in a smaller pot and it was all cascading out the front, and every time people would walk by it, it would fall off the shelf. So I put it in this shallow terracotta heavy pot so it's more sturdy and it seems to be doing fine. Just like the other ones, I water it when it's completely dry. Like this looks like it's completely dry in the top, but I can still kind of feel moisture on the bottom of the terracotta and in the drainage hole. So I'm gonna wait a little bit longer, let it completely dry out like you would a succulent, but then just don't leave it that way. Okay. Another cool trailing one is the Peperomia Beetle. This one has been super easy care for me. As you can see, I still have it in plastic. It does fine. It stays wet a long time, but I wait for it to completely dry out before I water it, and it's doing great. So this one and the last one live on this table right behind me. So they're like 12, 15 feet away from a south-facing window. There's a little bit of grow lights like off to the side, but they're not getting much more than that. So these are definitely in medium light and they're doing great. I think that would look really pretty in a hanging basket too, but I'm liking it on the shelf since it can handle the medium light. And this one, I haven't tried propagating it from a single leaf. I have done it from the stem and it does well. So when I say that I propagate these in soil, I will put it into just damp soil and I will cover it in a prop box or a Ziploc bag or something like that. I don't find the need to propagate it in anything else. I've never tried water because soil works so well and because that's the way I like to do succulents too, but minus the humidity. I decided to try it with Peperomia and they do great, and then that makes it super easy to transfer it into their forever pots. I wouldn't do it without a humidity dome over top of it though, because they just need that humidity. And Peperomia, so that's the difference between them and actual succulents, is they do come from the jungle. They do like humidity. They do great in terrariums. And that really helps them to grow their roots and propagate. But as you can see, I have mine in regular household humidity and they do fine that way too, at least these ones. Okay, next. Everybody knows this one, the baby rubber plant. I think it's Peperomia Obtusifolia. So this is the marble variety. A little bit of pink edges, I think that's so pretty. And I don't really know the name of this variety, but it's like a green on green variegation. So this one, last year when I had thrips, I just didn't want to deal with it on this plant and I cut it way back to where there was no leaves left, but there was like a node and it has grown back beautifully. Prettier than it was before. So for pests, because they are semi-succulent, I find that definitely mealybugs like them. And also thrips really like them. I don't think I've ever had spider mites on Peperomia, but definitely watch out for those mealybugs and those thrips. And of course, if you live somewhere that you can get systemic pesticide, that'll help you out with both those things. I do live in Canada and I did speak about using systemic in my first video because I do sometimes. I can't buy it in Canada, but there are private planty people that are sometimes willing to share. So I have been able to get my hands on a little bit, so I use it sparingly and only when totally necessary. Otherwise, for mealybugs, rubbing alcohol is your best friend. For thrips, there's a lot of different pesticides that you can use, but I usually use systemic when I see thrips. Okay, this one is the Raindrop Peperomia. This is another one that I actually cut way back down last year and it grew back much better for it. Medium light again. This actually lives right up in there. So it gets a little bit of LEDs. Those LEDs are really old. They're like 5 years old and they're halfway burnt out and they're cheap on Amazon, so it's not great lights. But it's happy. It's in terracotta. Definitely let it dry out all the way. It's got those really thick stems. Okay, this one is just a tiny little baby. So this is a watermelon Peperomia. I had a larger watermelon Peperomia before and it just failed and they grow these weird wonky leaves. So I figured I would never have one again, but I did a plant trade this summer and she just threw this baby in for me. So I said, well, I'll give it a try again. I really don't recommend this one for beginners. or anybody who expects their plant to look perfect, because it's never perfect for me. And people say that, you know, these wonky leaves are from the lack of calcium or magnesium, and I use CalMag, I use silicone, I use a good fertilizer, and they still do it, and I don't understand it, and it's just not worth it to me. So we'll see how this one does. I don't know how long it'll last. So this is the Peperomia Cupid. I just rinsed it off because it had a spider web in it. Not spider mites, just a spider web. But I think it is super adorable and underrated. And it eventually trails. It's really on my shelf. It goes like this and it grows, kind of displays itself. And I think that's cute anyway. You can see here, there is a plain green stem. So this is the variegated version. This is the plain green version. And this is what I'm saying about propagating by leaf, that I think I probably stuck a fallen leaf back into the soil and it gave me an all green vine. So technically I could cut this one up and have two plants, but I really like the variegated version. I know some people like the green more, but it's personal preference, I guess. Again, terracotta, definitely medium light. Even this one might be in low light because it's up on top of my plant shelves in the living room and there's no grow lights, and it's off to the side and like 15 feet from my southern windows. But it's an easy one. I like it a lot. And it's wet. So I'll just set that down. This one I've been having a little bit of trouble with. So this is the string of turtles. Generally, I find it grows amazing. It hangs directly in my south-facing window. It gets some direct sun. It's in terracotta. Generally it does great, except this summer I accidentally left it way too long and the roots dried out and then they dry rotted. And so I did have to restart quite a bit of it and put it into a smaller pot. I will insert a picture of it in its prime when it looked much better than this, but I think it will recover. I wanted to show you on this one too. This is how peperomia flower. So technically an inflorescence. They're just like little rat tails. They're really nothing special, but they're a good sign that your peperomia is happy. Some people will just snip them off, and that helps your plant to thrive better and not put its energy into flowers. So this one, when I did take it apart, I started propagating it. So I'll show you those after I go hang this one on a chair here. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about for a prop box. When you're propagating straight into soil, just a little bit of soil in there with perlite. And inside is a bunch of baby turtles. So I just cut it into small pieces, like 3 to 4 leaves per stem. Just lay them on top of the soil, moisten it down a bit, put the lid on, get it in some decent light, and it grows. And look at all of these flowers. I call them turtle tails on these. So all peperomias will do it, but I think it's cute on the turtles. Eventually I can just take a chunk out of here, set it on the top of a pot, and make a new plant. And the other way I'm propagating it, since I did have some rot of some roots, is I stuck the stems directly into soil in a pot, let them hang, put a plastic bag over top. Probably should seal the whole thing up in a bag, but I didn't have the right size. So that'll work, and that will grow roots, and it'll make a nice new trailing plant. So next, this is Peperomia Hope. This is definitely one of the easy ones. I do hang it in my south facing window so it likes a lot of light. I don't know if it's absolutely necessary. I believe Claire over at the Jungle Haven has hers in low light, just hanging from her ceiling. But it's very succulent, very thick leaves. I don't find that these leaves ever get flimsier. Like they say to do the taco test to see when they need water. That's not going to work with this because they're just thick and heavy and stiff all the time. I love the way that it's starting to trail down. Once it gets longer, I'm sure it'll trail more. And I have this one in plastic just because that's what it came in and I never bothered changing it. And it's doing really well. The top is totally full. So I should mention for substrate for these guys, similar to succulent. So I don't really like succulent soil that you buy in a bag because it's just mostly sand and it compacts so fast. So I use my regular soil mix with added perlite and bark, and probably about 50% perlite and bark for these guys because they don't want to stay wet very long. Hi guys, I just wanted to cut in because I forgot to talk about propagating the Peperomia Hope. So this one is more difficult because I have had no luck doing stem cuttings on this. As soon as you cut those stems, they just seem to die off and they leave the leaves behind. So I do propagate it by single leaf. And in fact, I cut the leaves in half. If I can get it out of the bag one-handed. I cut the leaves in half so I can get 2 plants per leaf. I put them down into damp soil, seal them up in a bag like this. And it takes a long time, but they do eventually, after a few months, start growing baby plants. So that's how I do the Peperomia Hope. And back to the video. All right, so that's it from me and all of my Peperomias. I hope you have a really great week. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I really appreciate it. And until next time, peace, love, and plants.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright. And for the first time in a long time, I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.